We've got about 500 people registered, so if you have a seat next to you or in a middle seat, you might want to scooch over. We're going to have some people squeezing in over the course of the next few minutes here. Um, at No Barriers, the barometer of our success is changing lives. And we believe over the next 4 days that right here in this room, some of you will have a life-changing experience. What we're going to do here tonight is give you a little bit of inspiration. Tonight's about inspiration, and the next 3 days are about action. You're going to hear from Erik Weihenmayer, the blind man who has reached the 7 summits. You're going to hear from Erik Stolhanske. I had to look at that one. Writer, actor, producer, public speaker, who also happens to have a prosthetic leg. Mark Wise and Chris Downey, 2 of our wounded veterans, one from the US, one from Canada, who are heading to the South Pole with Prince Harry at the end of this year on a Soldiers to Summits expedition. Mandy Harvey, who is an American jazz singer, who at the age of 18 completely lost her hearing. Katie Naida, the first woman to score points in a Division I NCAA football game, and also a survivor of rape. And finally, Bob Woodruff, ABC News journalist wounded in Iraq. What is it that unites all the stories that you're going to hear tonight and that you're going to experience over the next 3 days? In my mind, it is the No Barriers mindset. It is this idea that we can live full and meaningful lives. We can make a difference in the world no matter what barriers we face. And I can think of really very few people in the world who embody the No Barriers mindset and this idea of living a life of purpose despite the barriers we face than Erik Weihenmayer. Welcome to the stage, Erik.
Everyone, there we go. Much better. Cool. Congratulations, everyone. I'm so psyched to be here, and welcome. It's been exciting to be saying hello to people all day. You know, old friends and new friends. People have come all around the country to be here, and you know, No Barriers has been quite a journey. It's been a really big journey. Our No Barriers summits. We started in 2003. We started with just a little seed of an idea. You know, it was Mark Wellman and a guy named Jim Goldsmith who wanted to bring some adaptive technologies and bring some ideas of accessibility to this really cool and beautiful mountain town called Cortina, Italy, called Cortina. And we went over there with a bunch of equipment and a few speakers and some athletes. And that was the very first No Barrier Summit, just a couple dozen people. And now look at us. We're crammed in a room, 500 people. Isn't that exciting? And yeah, our first one was in Cortina, our second in Cortina. Then we decided, why aren't we doing this summit in the United States? So we came and did one in Squaw Valley and then in Miami. And then 2 years ago in Winter Park. So it's really exciting to be here for our 6th summit. I know we have people from all over the country, all over the world. How many people are even outside of the U.S.? Cheer. Don't raise your hands. I'm blind. Remember that. Anybody from outside the U.S.? Well, thank you for being here. Welcome. Yeah, fantastic. And how many here are first-timers to the summit? First-timers. Very cool. Are you a little bit freaked out? I hope so. You should be. No. And then how many people from who have been here for more than one summit? Yeah. How about 3 summits? Yeah. 4. 5, 6. Anyone in the audience have been here? I should go woo myself. I've been so fantastic. So that's really exciting. So thanks for people coming back. And I mean, what a journey this has all been, right? And I know it's been a journey for some of you too. Just getting here to Telluride, right? This isn't the easiest place to get to. those of those with mobility issues, those folks in chairs, folks who need a little extra help, like blind people, it's not easy getting here. It's a pretty remote place, and so there's a reason though we picked Telluride, right? There's a reason why we picked this place, because in a way, Telluride has metaphorical significance with our community. It's sort of a physical manifestation of our high hopes, our aspirations, our potential as individuals, as a community, in the way that we want to shape the world. So this beautiful, rugged place, it really is a symbol for all the things that we can do. And Dave talked about this no barriers mindset. And we've been talking a lot about this phrase a lot over the last year. It's become more and more important within the No Barriers organization. And what does it mean? I think it means different things to different people, right? But I think for me, I got a little closer to understanding what it meant. Last summit, we did our summit in Winter Park, and I was leading a hiking clinic. So we had all sorts of people in our community hiking up a peak in Winter Park. We had, blind folks using trekking poles and following bear bells. We had folks who had strokes who were using special crutches. We had paras, using one-offs. It was an incredible eclectic group, all climbing up the mountain. And the night before the clinic, this guy showed up and he wanted to join, Kyle Maynard. Some of you know Kyle? Yeah. Well, Kyle, he wanted to join, and it was really exciting. But we didn't really have a technology for Kyle to join the clinic. So that night we came up with a really brilliant idea. Some folks went to his hotel room and stole some bath towels. and then his team went down to the front desk and they got some packing tape and some foam, and then his team pushed him up to the base of the mountain in his chair. He got out of his chair, wrapped his stumps up with foam and bath towels and packing tape, and Kyle got out of his chair. The next 8 hours, he crabbed his way up through mud, over rocks, through snow, reached the summit of a 12,000-foot peak in Colorado. That's what the No Barrier Spirit is about. And I love that. You take this little scrap of an idea, this little seed of an idea, and you take bath towels and packing tape, these totally average, products, and you combine it with the light of the human spirit, and we'll go to amazing places. And by the way, Kyle wasn't satisfied with that. That was simply a stepping stone, just an experience that enabled him to push to the next level, because he continued to build his team and strengthen that team. He continued to build all these systems and strategies. He continued to build and innovate his prosthetics technology. And last January, after I think 16 days, he reached the summit of Kilimanjaro, the tallest peak in Africa. 19,300 feet. But I want to go beyond that, because I will say this. I don't like it. In fact, I really hate it when people tell me anything is possible. They say anything is possible. And I think that undermines all the hard work that it takes to push through barriers that want to knock us down and live a life that matters. If anything were possible, why aren't I racing NASCAR? I don't know. I mean, there are barriers out there, and they're real. They're not perceived. They're real barriers. Mountain climbing. If you want to reach the top of a mountain, there are real barriers that you have to get through on your journey. For me, climbing Everest, it was the Khumbu Icefall. You know, this is almost 3,000 feet of jumbled up boulders of ice of every size imaginable, from skyscrapers to baseballs collapsing and tumbling and exploding down the mountain like a river of ice. It moves 3 feet a day. You don't want to be in it when it's moving. And I'll tell you, it doesn't meet Americans with Disability Act standards, the ice fall. And there's crevasses. You got to reach across. Sometimes I can't even feel the other side. My friends just tap where they want me to land. You got to land in those little chipped out boot marks, the person in front of you. And then the ladders. There's ladders that you have to cross. And you know, I just gutted my way through that ice fall that first time. I was so exhausted. 13 hours it took me to get through it. I was just about 100 feet from Camp 1, and I was through it all. And I tripped over a tiny little crevasse. And my teammate, he just reached out. He was trying to grab me, and instead he bashed me in the nose with his ice axe. I came into camp with big fat droplets of blood pouring down my face. I was just in pain. I felt like I was going to pass out. And I was laying there in my tent, and I promise you, I wasn't thinking, you know, barriers are only in the mind. And I wasn't thinking, you know, what an amazing opportunity for growth, you know? No, I was tired. I was down. I was thinking about giving up, you know? Forget mountains. Just look at daily life. Just look at getting here, right? On the planes, trains, and automobiles. Think about, a blind guy trying to, get a Netflix movie with a remote, Daily life is hard, and there are barriers all around us. I'm doing dishes, actually, a few years ago, and I'm washing away, and I'm getting them really clean, and my wife, Ellie, she comes over, she's like, is that dishwashing soap doing the trick? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's doing a great job. And then she's like, you might want to taste it. And who would know that syrup bottles and soap look exactly the same? Is this a conspiracy? I wrote a book, and I teamed up with this guy. He's a scientist, and we studied communities and organizations around the world, and we came away understanding this consistent categories. We found that people fall into 3 categories. They're quitters, campers, or climbers. Now, quitters, we're not going to talk about any of them today because there are no quitters in this audience because you're here. You're here, right? Campers are a really interesting group, though. They're interesting. They're fascinating because they make up a lot of any community, big bulk of any community. They start out often as climbers, trying to make an impact in the world, trying to live an important life. But along the way, as they climb, they reach a certain degree of success, and they either are consumed by doubt or fear. Maybe these catastrophic changes happen in their lives that they don't feel equipped to confront, or maybe they meet these massive, insurmountable barriers that they feel that get in front of them like brick walls, and those brick walls shove them to the sidelines where they camp out, they stagnate, and their potential, their life force is lost to the world. Climbers are a rare group. They figure out a way to continue to challenge themselves and grow and innovate till the day they die. So I think the question is, how do we climb? How do we climb when it makes so much more sense sometimes, right, to camp out? And here's the trouble with climbing, right? Here, as all of you know, because a lot of you are climbers. How do you know when you climb? When we take on more challenges in our lives, when we try to climb higher and higher up the mountain, when we try to take on this no barriers mindset, we bring struggle, higher chances of failure. We bring adversity into our lives. It's like we're asking for it. Who wants that? But then here's the other side of the coin. Why then, when we climb, do we feel most creative, most determined, most focused? Why do we feel most alive? Why, when we climb, are our contributions to the world the most significant they've ever been? Um, I started out, when I went blind from this very rare eye disease, I started out as a camper. I didn't know how to break through blindness. I remember being led into school for the first time as a newly blinded person, being led from class to class, sitting in the cafeteria at my own table, listening to all the excitement and laughter and joy passing me by that I wanted to be a part of, thinking about my life, like in a rear view mirror, into all the things I lost, into all the people I'd never see, all the things I'd never do. The thing I was afraid of most was that I would be swept to the sidelines, that I would be forgotten, that my life would be meaningless, a life lived for nothing. That was terrifying for me. And I could still see a little bit out of my right eye. And if I got really close to the TV set, I could still watch TV. And I was watching the show called That's Incredible. And they were featuring a guy named Terry Fox. And Terry was a Canadian. He had lost a leg to cancer. He was still in the hospital when he decided that he was going to run across Canada. Now, I can tell you, this is not the intuitive decision a person in his situation was supposed to make, right? Most people just dig in, you focus on survival. Instead, it was as though Terry understood that between stimulus and response, between the things that happen to you and the ways that you're supposed to react, there's a space. And in that space, there is a choice. And Terry chose to attack. And those miles, they took a toll. They took a toll on his body, on his stump. The look on his face, it was just an absolute contradiction, full of exhaustion, yet at the same time full of exaltation. And I remember thinking to myself, inside of us, there seemed to be something at the time, I just called it a light that seemed to be able to feed on frustration, on setbacks, to use those things as fuel, to make the greater the challenge, the brighter that light could burn. And I prayed it existed in me. And if I could use it to tap into my human potential and make myself more creative, more focused, more driven, to turn into the storm of life and emerge on the other side, not just unscathed, not just damaged as little as possible, but actually stronger and better. So Terry ran, and he started out just with a few people, and nobody paid attention. But as he ran, mile after mile, people started paying attention, and people started gathering on the side of the road, cheering him on. And pretty soon, there were hundreds, and then there were thousands of people all on the side of the road cheering him forward. And since Terry's death, I think his name, his legacy, has raised over $1 billion of research for cancer. Now, that's a movement. And great things, as you know, they're not done alone. They're done with a great community. And I've thought a lot about this because at No Barriers, we really know that it's all about building this really powerful community. I've thought a lot about community. It's very much just a team. That's what a community is. It's a team. And, those of you who have military background, you look at some of these civilian teams and you go, that ain't a team, right? That's a watered down, miserable team. That isn't, it's a loose confederation of people doing similar things at similar times. That's not enough. I've always wanted to be a part of something, people who aren't afraid to link their fates inextricably together, to be responsible for and to each other. And you learn a lot about teams when you're climbing because you're actually roped together. You're roped together. So if you're a good team, you're wriggling up the mountain like a snake. All the pieces are in perfect sync, yet everyone on that team, they're doing very different things to keep the team moving and functioning and safe. If one person falls through a crevasse, tumbles down the mountain, sort of in everyone's best interest to stop them from going. You throw yourself down because you know you're next. It's actually a really terrifying way to travel. because there's no middle ground. You win together or you lose together. You know, everyone on that team can drive you forward or they can kill you. It's their choice. But I think in an environment riddled with pitfalls, riddled with challenges, you know, linking ourselves with great people, it's the best chance we have. So look around this room. This is your community. This is your rope team, or maybe your future rope team, right? Your different backgrounds, your different ethnicities, your different abilities, your different ages, different genders. You're from different places. You have different roles to play, different kind of expertise. You have different ways of seeing the world. But you link together behind one vision. A vision that the human potential can triumph over barriers. That's the vision. And that vision can become the glue that binds us together. It can become the fuel that drives us as a community. So over the next 4 days, I really want you to think not just about harnessing adversity and accomplishing big things on your own, but really think about the privilege of being part of such a powerful community where we have the potential as this community to nudge society forward, to affect the next wave of innovation, to open doors that other people can follow behind us. That's really cool to be part of something so big, of movement in a sense, like Terry Fox started 30 years ago. I'm really honored and privileged to be here. I'm excited to climb with all of you for the next 4 days. All right, so let's keep climbing and let's start the festivities here.
To passport! Yo-lay, yo-lay, yo-lay.
So much of my authority is derived from the power right here.
You guys?
You're right.
Yeah, I know, you got beautiful big brown lips.
So why haven't you ever talked to me before?
Was intimidated. You're very intimidating.
You lambing at me, Drake?
Of course not, sir.
You want to punch in the eye, guy?
Oh, God, no.
Is that Swedish, son? It's Norwegian. What's the difference? Culture, looks, names, history, food. Okay.
You're under arrest. What are the charges, officer?
It's that moment that this was a stage in a movie. This would be shown up on a humongous trying to get the home team fans fired up.
Hey, ladies.
Hi, Todd. Say hi to the missus.
All right, guys, come on. 1, 2, 3, go.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage comedic actor Erik Stolhanske.
Thank you very much. What an honor and a privilege to be up here with some of these mavericks, the minds, and it's just so impressive, some of the will and the determination, and it's just an honor to be here, to be in Telluride, and just to be here with some of the leaders that are just making such an important role in changing the lives of so many people here at the 2013 No Barrier Summit. So this is going to be such a fun weekend, so let's put our hands together. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with my work and didn't recognize anything from those clips because you don't watch Comedy Central or HBO between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm a writer, producer, actor in comedy movies, probably best known for Rabid and Super Troopers. Thank you. But what a lot of people don't know was that when I was making those movies, I made all of those films with a fake leg. And a lot of people are asking me in this summit to say, well, what's your barrier? Why are you here? And so I had to think about it for a while. And my barrier is that I haven't climbed Mount Everest or Kilimanjaro like these incredibly impressive human beings, but I have attempted to ascend the mountain called Hollywood. Now, the mountain of Hollywood is difficult to climb because there's this mindset that somebody with a prosthetic leg can't play an able-bodied human being. They don't think that somebody with a fake leg can just be a regular Joe. And so that's been my barrier, and that's one that I'm determined to break, and have a couple movies still in the pipeline, and I'm still planning to reach that ascent. Now, having a fake leg for me, it's always been a constant source of entertainment for me. I've always actually had a pretty good time with it. And I know that there's a lot of people out there, sometimes they say when you lose a sense of something, you gain an overdeveloped sense of something else. I think that when I lost my leg, I developed a sense of humor. And I know it's true for a lot of people that I've met because I've been traveling around a lot recently, and I've been working with the DAV, the Disabled American Veterans Association. And I have to admit, the comedian in me has appreciated some of the stickers that I've seen on some of the prosthetic devices. Inspirational messages like failed skydiver. And the double amp who had the sticker that said, price of gas cost an arm and a leg. Now, to me, these are inspirational because they were using humor to deal with their injuries. Not always an easy thing. And for me, I'm going to tell a couple stories tonight because for me, one of my earliest moments of using humor came about probably the second grade. I want to give an example. Now, I've had a cold, so please, I didn't want to not come up here and speak. I'm working through the barrier of getting over my cold, so bear with my smooth DJ voice. My earliest use of humor came when I was in the second grade. Whenever we would have a substitute teacher, my classmates would always egg me to sit in the front row. They wanted me to sit in the front row because I like to pop off my leg like this, turn it around, so one foot is facing forward, the other one would be facing backwards. So when the substitute teacher came in, she would see it and she'd start to get a little sick. And we all got to go out in the playground for recess a little bit early that day. So it had its advantages. I sort of use that as an example, that little anecdote, because when I've been traveling around talking, a lot of people don't even believe that I have a fake leg. When I stand here like this, it's almost hard to tell. And in those films, a lot of people didn't know I had it. But I learned that having a wooden leg, a fake leg, growing up it actually was wooden, is awesome because at a very early, when I was in 5th grade actually is when I learned how awesome having a wooden leg can be. And I'll tell you why. Because we were out on the playground playing the famous American beloved game called kickball. Now I know there's a lot of international people here, and so if you don't know kickball, it's like baseball or cricket. Pitcher, but except for a pitcher rolls a red rubber ball, and you have to go and you have to kick it, and then you run on the bases. You try to get home, just like in baseball, but with you kicking it. So we were in 5th grade out there on the playground playing kickball, and I had the biggest crush on this cute, freckly, redheaded girl, Julie McMahon. I was so in love with Julie McMahon, and I knew that if I kicked a home run in kickball, she was going to marry me. I was so sure of it, I'd already bought the ring. And I knew we were going on our honeymoon. So we're out in the playground, and Julie's over here with her friends, and I look over, I give her a wave. The pitcher gets ready, and he rolls that red rubber ball, and I get up there, and I rev up my little 5th grade legs, and I see that ball coming in, and I go, and I gave that ball a kick as hard as I can, right? And I'm feeling pretty good. I see that ball sailing past the second baseman, and I'm feeling pretty good until I look over, and I see that all the infielders are kind of scattering. Now, I'm sure you guys know where this is going, but stick with me. They're scattering not because I kicked the ball so far. They're scattering because my leg is now flying end over end across the sky. It was like someone had taken a boomerang and thrown it up in the air. A really straight boomerang with a sock on one end. And I look over, and Julie McMahon starts letting out a wail, like a banshee screaming wail. And it's not like she's in danger of being impaled. My leg's way over this way, but I guess when a boy's body part goes flying through the air like a tree limb in a tornado, naturally someone's startled. And, if that wasn't humiliating enough, so I'm trying to gain my balance, stand there on one leg. The great wit of our class, Scott Engeldorf, runs out, grabs my leg, and he starts chasing all the girls across the playground, swinging him and threatening him as he's chasing across the playground. I was thinking things didn't turn out quite as I had planned. But then I look over at cute, red, freckled-faced Julie McMahon. There's a single tear running down her cheek. And after school that day, we were making out behind the brick building. And I realized having a wooden leg might be a pretty cool thing. Well, fast forward to college. I went off to Colgate University, and I couldn't have been more excited to go to school because being out on the East Coast, far away from where I grew up in Minnesota, was a whole new experience for me. It was an opportunity to kind of recreate who I was. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew how I lost my leg. And so I thought, hey, just keep it that way. Maybe I'll have fun with it, like just be able to use my imagination, be creative. And I wasn't really planning on this, but a couple months go down the road, and I'm sitting on this porch at this fraternity that I was joining, and it was a beautiful fall night. We're sitting outside, stars all over, and I'm talking to this upperclassman named Lindsay, having a great time, having a great conversation, laughing. When out of nowhere, she reaches over and she puts her hand on my knee. And I knew exactly what was going to happen at that point, right? She said, "Are you wearing a brace or something?" I don't know if I had a moment of inspiration or exactly what happened, but I know women like the bad boys, right? I have a sister, I know. I looked Lindsay right in the eye and I said, "Yeah, I lost my leg in a really dangerous motorcycle stunt." And she asked if we could see each other again. And I thought, wow, this hunk of now carbon graphite might be the best wingman a guy could ever have. Well, then there's this real nature-loving girl that I had met, Poppy, and I may have told her that I joined Greenpeace because I wanted to swim with the whales when a Japanese fishing boat came out of nowhere and harpooned me. Well, then there was Maria from the Spanish house. I was running with the bulls in Pamplona. Peligroso? Sí. Muy peligroso. And then there's Jessica. This little paper cut? Yeah, it was a rodeo clown. But as we all know, all great things must come to an end. And I found out this the hard way because I happened to be at a bar one night and I saw two girls that I had dated were sitting in a booth together. And I looked over and they're both smiling and laughing and talking. And a couple seconds later, I looked over again and one looked very confused and they started talking. And then they both looked very confused and all of a sudden they weren't laughing anymore. And I learned probably the most important lesson in college that night. Women talk to each other. I'm an idiot. I'm the first to admit it. I'm an idiot. But that was a long time ago, right? I've grown up. I've matured. I've gotten married. I found this beautiful woman who, for some reason, has put up with my shenanigans. And I realized that maybe the reason that she's put up with my shenanigans was because I decided to be open and honest with her. I mean, isn't that right, women, that what you want from your man is to be open and honest? Just honesty. Yeah. So I told her how I really lost my leg. I was hit by a comet when I was fixing the space station. And it worked. Well, that's my story. I think humor is the best medicine. I want to try to keep making movies, and I cannot wait for this weekend to hear all of your stories about what happened to all of you. It's going to be great. Thank you so much for listening to me tonight. I want to keep the opening ceremonies going. We've got so many more people to come on and tell their stories, so thank you so much for having me tonight. It's been an honor.
In 2011, 4 wounded servicemen achieved the impossible by successfully walking unsupported to the North Pole. In 2012, 5 wounded servicemen courageously challenged the world's highest peak, Mount Everest. This year, the stakes are raised. A new challenge has been set. 4 organizations have combined for a united global endeavor. Servicemen and women from 4 nations, the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, and Australia, will embark on an epic race to one of the most inhospitable places on Earth, the South Pole. Wounded in service to their country, these allies will now represent their nations in a race unlike any other. Each will need to overcome not only their injuries, but gale force winds, freezing temperatures, and 335 kilometers of grueling terrain. It will take more than courage. It will take more than determination. It will test them like nothing before. These 3 teams will show that beyond injury, beyond adversity, our wounded can achieve the extraordinary. Support your nation. Support your team. Support the walk.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage South Pole Allied Challenge team member Mark Wise.
Thank you for the warm greeting. We haven't actually walked there yet, so keep it delayed a little. But it sounds really cool when you get a British person, doing the subtitles or the script for it, and support the walk. I'm very fortunate to be here, very fortunate to be part of this team, and very excited about being here this weekend as well. As a U.S. team member, there's 4 for the U.S., 4 for the joint Canadian-Aussie team, and then same 4 for the U.K. And we've got the U.S. And Canadian-Aussie contingent here for the weekend. So we're really excited to be here. As I said, my name is Mark Wise. I'm 28 years old. I'm probably a 4th generation military service member for the United States. Great-grandfather was at Pearl Harbor. Grandfather was in the Army during Korea. Father was in the Army during Gulf War I. So why not just jump on the bandwagon and get into the Army as well? Yeah, that's right. But it was never really a question if I was going to go into the service or not. I always knew that. Just sort of at age 18, knew I was going to go to a service academy. Got to pick between West Point or the Air Force Academy. And coming out to beautiful Colorado, I saw blue skies, mountains, and it didn't look as gray and bleak as West Point, so I picked the Air Force Academy. But after a few years there, I realized, that my passion and sort of what I really wanted to do was to lead troops in combat and be on the ground and in the fight. So I made a personal decision, nothing against the Air Force, but a decision to go into the Army. My dad was an Army Ranger, and that's what I wanted to be. So I went to become an Airborne Ranger. And, right out of school, got married, went to a year of training in the Army. and then went to my first unit out here at Fort Carson in Colorado Springs, another gorgeous part of the state, and trained for a year with 26 young men from 18 to 34 years old. At the age of 22, 23 years old, and they were mine. And my responsibility, trained up with them for a year to go to Afghanistan, and deployed in 2009, the summer of 2009, May 26th, to Afghanistan. Sort of in the southern region, and on a patrol on 24 October 2009, was in a firefight, and was immediately next to one of my soldiers on the right side of me. We had been engaged from the south by some machine gun fire. We moved across an irrigation ditch, falling in, laughing at each other because we were both soaking wet, thinking about how much we were going to be made fun of for sitting in the vehicle soaking wet. And very simple question. He asked me to switch spots. I was on a knee. I put my hand up. I traded places with him. And as he stepped around behind me, he detonated a mine sitting on top of 40 pounds of explosive. And he was killed instantly. And sort of in a flash, just very quickly, my life went from comical and laughing and having fun as a young soldier, a young man, to being wounded and fighting for my life. But that day was just a snapshot of sort of getting back, getting into the medical system, and starting a very, very long and different road to recovery that's brought me here today. Devin Mickle, PFC Devin Mickle, a young soldier of mine, handpicked him to be my radioman that day. Was killed, 19 years old. It turned 19 about 3 weeks prior, and knew his wife. Have had the chance since then to meet his family and everything else, sister, mother, and I've seen his wife, multiple times since then, and just keeping in touch. But a big part of that recovery is physical, and an even larger part of that for everybody here who does have some sort of physical injury or mental disability. Very much of that is an emotional and mental struggle. So it's been a long, few years getting back and forcing myself to grow and develop. And, from the first goal of wanting to be able to push the pain button, because no one else can push it for you. And if you can't push it yourself, you're sort of in a predicament. But learning ways to either sweet talk your way into some nurse's heart for her to push the button for you, or to be able to push it yourself, and then sort of take these smaller and smaller steps to where now I have the privilege of joining these team to go to the South Pole and continue our mission in representing other veterans in overcoming those challenges and getting back to their lives and their families to continue to serve. So as a leader in the Army, my responsibility was to set the example, lead the way, and show other soldiers what it's like to be out front. And so, like the other team members here, that's our obligation and our responsibility to the soldiers that come behind us. There's probably 15 to 20 wounded service members affiliated with Soldiers to Summits here right now. And it's an honor and a privilege to be a part of that group that represents sort of the additional, 60,000 veterans that are in our position. So our great. And so it's always humbling to remember that, our stories are unique, yes, but it is part of that larger representation of the population that's coming home, both with mental and physical injuries. And, it's very easy to get up here and for people to recognize, yes, he's blown up, left side, basically everything on that side at least has been impacted somehow. But there's a lot that are coming back with mental trauma, post-traumatic stress or TBI. And this whole expedition is just sort of an opportunity to put a flash in the pan, to be able to advocate and stand on a platform to say, hey, there's a lot we can do when we return to society, and be able to continue to advocate. And part of that is not just that it's a U.S. team, but as Chris is going to come up here and talk about as well, is the stories echoed across sort of all these different coalition nations that have come together to be able to fight this war on terrorism. So Chris is going to come up here and again, as an allied nation, down in Kandahar, I work with Canadians, Australians, and Brits all together at the same time. So Chris has a very unique story as well, and I hope you guys can give him as great a reception as I got. Thank you very much. Thanks, bro.
That's actually a tough one to follow. Mark's a great speaker and quite an inspiration. I only met Mark about I think it was March of this year in Iceland when we first did the selection. Same with the rest of the U.S. team and the Commonwealth. Actually, you can get the U.S. and the Commonwealth team to stand up. Where are you guys? There you go. So I'm sure you guys are all inspired by what Mark said and the kind of person he is. Those other 6 people that just stood up are just as impressive, just as motivation, and just as inspirational. For myself, as you said, my name is Chris. I'm from Canada. I'm a proud member of the Air Force for the last 13 years. Nothing wrong with the Air Force, Mark. My job in the Air Force is a EOD operator. For those of you who aren't familiar, basically my job is to render safe IEDs and roadside bombs, that kind of stuff. My mom doesn't like the job, but it's a lot of fun. So in 2009, after 3 years of begging, I was selected for a tour to Afghanistan. And so with a team of 5 members, we deployed to Afghanistan in early 2010 with that exact role. That tour was actually pretty short. We were just shy of 30 days. We had seen more IEDs in that 30 days than my previous 12 years in the service. On that day, May 3rd of 2010, we went out, did a phenomenal job, especially by my teammate and best friend, Craig Blake. It was his turn to don the suit, so he actually took it apart that day. Once that was done, we had about a 2-mile hike back to where our vehicles were. On the way back, we were actually hit by another IED while we were on foot. Unfortunately, Craig was the one who stepped just beyond it when it went off. I was about 7 feet behind him. And funny enough, it's the sort of same side of situation. We were actually just in the middle of telling each other a joke when it happened. So we were kind of both smiling. When it went off, basically there was a incredible high-pitched noise and the most intense heat I've ever felt in my life. Then I hit the ground, all the noise came back. Unfortunately, my teammate Craig was killed instantly. As for myself, I remained conscious and was medevaced. I suffered the loss of my right eye, all my teeth, most of my jaw, actually most of my right face, shrapnel wounds, burns, collapsed lung. It's a pretty long list. But in the end, I was lucky enough to be alive, which I don't, I'll never complain at all. Excuse me. As Mark mentioned, and as many of you in this room know, part of the struggle is not just the physical injuries. It's the emotional and mental aspect of it. And anytime I talk about Craig, I have a hard time. I'm out here living an amazing life now, and he's not. So basically how I got involved to where I'm at now is I was fortunate enough last year through a program in Canada called Soldier On, which is the same as the programs you guys have here, same kind of idea. They sent out this application and they said, hey, do you want to throw your name in and walk to the South Pole? What do you mean walk to the South Pole? I said, do you want to walk 336 kilometers, pull your gear to the South Pole? I said, that sounds a lot like the Army stuff. I don't really want to do that. But I thought, what the hell? Because the truth is, why not try everything? We're told constantly that there's limits, there's boundaries, there's all these obstacles, these walls, all these things. So why not try it? Why not try everything? The worst that'll happen is no, you didn't make it this time, try again, try another one, etc., etc. So I threw my name in, and apparently I'm a decent rider because just like the rest of the people here, they selected us to do the initial interviews. Then we went to Iceland, where we got to experience some pretty wild weather up on a glacier. Being Canadian, it's not too bad. I'm used to cold, snow. I don't like it, but I'm used to it. 2 Australians on my team, they were not so familiar with it. But they did pretty good. From there, they selected the final team. And that's how we ended up here to do high altitude training and stuff like that. And the truth is, I actually had never heard of no boundaries until yesterday. Barriers. Sorry, see, I'm still. I had never heard of it until yesterday. That is the honest truth. I was just told that we were coming to do some training. First of all, I said, where is it Telluride? Telluride? Yeah. I said, where is this on a map? So they pointed it out. What is it? To Telluride. There you go. But just in the not even 24 hours that I've been here, I've spoken to a few people from the organization, a few people that benefit from the organization, and it's unbelievable. I mean, I was inspired coming here, being with those people that you stood up back there, and the 4 that are in the UK. I was beyond inspired. I mean, many of you guys don't know in that video, but Ivan, who's wearing the sunglasses, is completely blind, and he skied with us, and he's going to go to the South Pole. That's unbelievable. But then I've been here, and just the few people I've met has been incredible. Like I'm overwhelmed, actually. I don't even know how to describe what the feeling is here. And it's something that's happened in the last 3 years. Every time I've gone somewhere with other people that have been wounded or injuries or some kind of disease or sickness that took something away from them, it's the same thing. Nobody in here is a quitter. Nobody in here knows the word no, knows the word can't do it, don't want to do it. Nobody knows that. Nobody judges you. Nobody treats you differently. We're just people. Doesn't matter where you're from, what your injuries are, what your sickness is. We're just people. And that is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Seriously. So I just want to, I know I'm a little bit over time, so I'm going to go real quick here. I just want to say 2 things. One is they asked Mark and I to speak in the hopes to try and, inspire and motivate other people. And as I just said, the truth is it's the other way around. Like even standing up here, seeing everybody is what inspires me. This gives me courage. This helps me heal. This helps me go forward, is doing this kind of stuff. The second, I just wanted to say the reason why I'm doing this, the reason why I live my life the way I live it to this day. As I mentioned, Craig, the day I woke up in the hospital, I couldn't see, talk, move, or do anything like that. And I basically sat there silently and made a promise to him. I promised him that I would live every single minute of my life to the absolute fullest and not waste the gift that he gave me. Because his body covered enough of the blast as to why I'm alive. And that is why I live the way I live now. I owe it to him, and I will keep doing that until the day I die. So thank you very much.